Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my January 2021 page 112 tag. I'm so excited. I really have a soft spot for these videos. But anyway, the page 112 tag was started a few years ago by Sean at Sean the Book Maniac, fashioned after a French literary prize wherein I think they comprised a long list of books based solely on the writing quality on page 112. So you have absolutely no context for the rest of the story. You just have to go by what you think of the writing. So I have been using this tag for the past several months to whittle down my unread physical shelves. I have this handy dandy Books and Cats mug filled with titles inside, and I pick 3 of them, and then I pit page 112s against each other, and then finally choose one to add to my monthly TBR. Also, I'm kind of excited this month because I went ahead for the first time and revamped the titles. That being that, first of all, I got rid of any titles that I'd ended up reading in some other way, but more importantly, I added in all my 2020 titles of acquired books that I'd been ignoring all year last year, but if I have no plans to read them this year, they are now in this cup. I do, in fact, do a lot of pre-planning when it comes to my reading, and that's why I think I find these videos to be so exciting, because I guess I need the spontaneity sometimes, and here's the chance for it. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and choose from this mug, starting with book number 1. Okay, I'm just going to whittle around in here, pretend this is like, you know, shuffling cards or something, but okay, where do I finally choose one? They also get stuck together rather easily, but here we go, here's one. The Orchard by David Hopen. Just as I figured might happen, I got one of my most recent acquisitions. This was a holiday gift given to me back in December 2020, just a month ago. I'm kind of hoping I don't just get, 2020 picks, because I do have some earlier books in here as well, but we'll have to see. Okay. Book number 2. Mud, Chronicles of the Third Realm War by E.G. Wenstrom. So much for getting away from 2020 acquisitions, although I think I got this one really early in the year. This is also science fiction, which I think SFF is a little dicier when it comes to page 112 because, with all the world building, you kind of need to know some context sometimes. Sometimes, just the middle could, make no sense without it. That being said, I've gone ahead and chosen a page 112 sci-fi book in the past, or fantasy book technically in the past, so... And finally, book number 3. Here's to hoping I get something before 2020, or at least if I get another 2020, maybe I'll get earlier books next month, who knows. And okay. Nope, we are staying in 2020, and also kind of strange titles. This is What Shines From It by Sarah Rauch. This is a short story collection, which once again kind of doesn't fit the theme of the page 112 tag, because, page 112 in a short story collection could be, the beginning, the middle, the end, what have you, but I'll do my best with it. Okay, and now I'm off to read these rather disparate page 112 offerings, and then I will get back to you. Okay, and I'm back. And off the bat, I gotta tell you, these books are all very different from each other in terms of their genre and style, that sort of thing, but I thought they were all very strong. So I have a task in front of me. That being said, I did, go ahead, I read the books to myself and technically made decisions about where to go next, but now I'm gonna go ahead and read these page 112s to you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. Starting with book number 1, The Orchard by David Hopen, which FYI starts in the middle of a quote. But it helps to be reminded why this is important. Why Orthodox Judaism enriches lives, why rabbis can catalyze a lifelong impact in a way a professor cannot. And, to make the deal a bit sweeter, now and again you encounter exceptional thinkers who stand out, who make the whole thing worthwhile. He stood, moved to his glass bookcase. I've accumulated along my journey a wonderful assortment of books that collect dust, unappreciated as they are by most students. Unfortunately, until now, there's really only been one student who gave a damn about such things. I suspect, however, you might be the second. Leibniz, Spencer, Locke, Chaucer, Hobbes, Rousseau, I blinked in awe, thinking of my own sparse collection. Do you happen to know that student, Mr. Eden? I picked at my fingernails. It's Evan. We're quite fortunate to have an astonishing number of impressive minds here at the Academy. Top standardized scores, elite college acceptances, wonderful future graduate school and employment outcomes, all of which we track meticulously. But it's very easy for students, in the moment, to get caught up purely in their studies and their extracurricular commitments and their applications. It's rare to see someone take an active interest in a broader scope of things during their high school years. My point, really, is that I think you might be interested in finding intellectual companionship in Mr. Stark. In fact, you two might well discover considerable overlap in your interests. Yeah, I don't think Evan would be too intrigued or flattered by that proposal. Rabbi Bloom gave a soft smile. Probably not, at least to start. But my unsolicited advice would be to avoid taking his detachment, let's call it, too seriously. He has a way of opening up eventually, once he's comfortable. I thought of Evan flinging his naked body from a rooftop. That hasn't been my impression. The year is yet young. You might be surprised how things change, and I'd know, to speak candidly, Mr. Stark isn't particularly delighted with me at the moment, and from what I hear about today's events, I don't think I'm especially pleased with him either. But I also know this is temporary. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strength in this. The dialogue in particular, I just feel like it had a great flow, a great back and forth between the rabbi and the main character. That being said, I'm coming into the page 112 tag with bias that, the original award isn't supposed to have, because I know a lot about this book already. I mean, I was itching to read it very recently. That's why I asked for it as a gift very recently. It's gotten a lot of buzz very recently as well. It came out very recently. I should stop saying very recently. I know this is a book about Orthodox boys in an academic institution. It's a very different sort of orthodoxy than I'm usually reading about. It's also caught the attention of the non-Jewish community, which I'm also very intrigued about. And I know a bit about the main character and his relationship with this enigmatic figure, Evan, who already I could tell, like, if he's jumping naked off of rooftops, I guess that's our first page 112 introduction to that personality. So I'm not sure. I feel like I wonder if I have some bias when it comes to this page 112 because I already know some stuff about it. But I do think the writing is strong. Speaking of bias, I'm also biased by this page count. This is over 400 pages. I'm already reading a book over 400 pages, and I'm trying to get to 8 books for the first time in several months. So, taking all these things in stride, I think I'm going to give this second place and not add it to my TBR this month. But stay tuned in future months, because this will be coming back. Okay, book 2 is Mud, Chronicles of the Third Realm War by E.J. Wenstrom. It's a sci-fi pick, the first of a series. The town continues its routine. From this distance, I am free to soak in as much of this peaceful place as I can, as much of Jordan as I can, wave by wave, savor every second. He's so easy, so carefree and open. He settles into Haven as though it were always his home. Even his bruises are almost completely faded, the last signs of Epaw disappearing. And me and our journey here. It's better this way. I ignore the hollowness in my chest and accept what I knew all along. There is nothing for me here among the humans, not with Jordan. Not now, not while I'm like this. I focus instead on the unknown dangers ahead. As twilight closes in, I soak in all I can with a last look to the village. Jordan has taken over its open center, teaching the other children his kick-the-pebble game. Their calls and laughter stretch through the cool air, free and open. No danger, no silencers, no binds. I look and look toward the horizon, wait for the moon. Some distance up the shore, the waves splash against small clusters of dark rocks. In the middle of them, the rocks rise into a small cave. Dark, secluded, safe. Like my room in the temple tower, My body aches, craves the solitude it offers, but I can't, not now, with the humans watching. The moon never shows. This is it, I have to go tonight. Eventually, the dark settles in and the adults call the children in from their game for bed. Jordan lingers in the village center, staring out toward me, waiting. But I can't bring myself to go back down, take on the layers of fear and burden again, to say goodbye to him. Not again. Finally, Lena calls to him, and he goes in with a final look up to me. And then I am left alone to face the dark and the great task it brings for me. All right. This is right near the tail end of a chapter. I think there's one more sentence after this, but I went ahead and stopped. I really like this as well for the scene setting. I mean, so much for what I whine about in, sci-fi novels, but I feel like it's interesting. We got a lot of emotion about the place of Haven for how it was similar and different to places that this main character came from before. I think this place, Epa, seemed like a really bad place because his companion Jordan, had, bruises and scars from it or something like that. And it seems like it did something to their relationship as well. The main character is talking about not being human, and of course, since I do know things about these novels, I know that he's a golem. I think, not in the Jewish sense necessarily, but Wenstrom was using the golem as inspiration for this character. But I guess in any case, I would assume a golem is kind of separate from humans. Not made from the same cloth, obviously, in this scene where this character is trying to find sanctuary on his own, and is thinking back to his own past in terms of a place where I think he felt safe before, and now he hopes the cave will be the same. So yeah, I am certainly intrigued. And finally, page 112 from What Shines From It by Sarah Rauch. This is a short story collection by an indie press. Actually the design in here is quite beautiful. There's a lot of nice illustrations. Page 112 comes from the middle, maybe technically slightly more toward the end, but still actually the middle of a short story called Kintsukuroi. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Dust on the picture frames and a pile of unopened mail and unpaid bills, my chores neglected. This morning, frost laceworks the windows and sunlight wavers along the walls. Winter should have let us out of its grip by now, first week of May, and by mid-afternoon it'll be warm enough to shed a layer or two. But things remain frozen. I trace the crackled ice with my fingers, try to memorize the fractals. On the back of an envelope, I draw a heart and leave it where Dot will see. By the time I get to the studio, the sun's high and there isn't time for me to throw before I'm supposed to meet Michael. The broken pots hunker on their shelf, surly and jagged. Might as well. In my tool cabinet sit the resin and the lacquer in their squat jars with tiny, tight Asian characters on the labels. Little bag of gold powder with a price tag that made Dot shake her head in disbelief. The process increases the object's value, I told her, an ancient practice, but she's never been one for metaphor. And it is a process. Caught up in the filing, the smoothing, the dipping of the brush into the gold, I lose track of time and don't come to until my phone buzzes. A message from Michael. Where are you? I'm half an hour late and don't want to leave. I text back, studio, lost track of time. Come here? 10 minutes later, he's locking the door behind him. We've been here together 2 or 3 times, that balding crimson velvet chair by the window finally making itself useful. But we try to avoid personal spaces, places our spouses might appear without warning. I almost checked in, he said, but I got this strange feeling. Sometimes he talks like this. Though he looks like a lumberjack and doesn't believe in his wife's God, he swears by a buried intuition I can't help but be crazy for. I'm waiting in my truck, he says, and who walks out of the lobby but one of my colleagues, straightening his tie and looking rather satisfied, followed a few minutes later by another colleague, dazed and her shirt buttoned wrong. We'll have to switch motels again, I say. Michael shakes his head like he's clearing some thought he doesn't want. I wonder, he says, if that's what we look like. Okay. This one suffers from being a true contender of the page 112 tag because I have no idea what the story is about other than what I just read. I assume the main character is an artist, obviously, dealing with pots and calligraphy. She's in her studio, and we kind of get a little bit of setup with that in the beginning, and she obviously gets lost in her work. And the second part, presumably, is about an affair she's having with a man named Michael when they're both married people. because all of their talk seems to revolve around the fact of, we have to be careful, we can't be in places people will recognize us, and by the way, what will people think if, we look, like we just had sex when we're leaving? Uh-oh. I mean, that's what I'm, assuming, given the implications of what they're talking about. I think it's kind of weaker, but again, because of page 112, it's just the page we land on that two things are kind of happening at once. We're never going to know really who Dot is exactly. And also, it suffers from a huge pet peeve of mine that Rauch doesn't use quotation marks for her dialogue. And with that in mind, I think I'm going to go ahead and put this one aside. And I'm going to add Mud to my list of January 2021 reads. It's more than just the page I read. I have been looking forward to this book. This is a local author. She wrote for a local press. And also I've been wanting to read more science fiction and fantasy. I've read a lot of literary or general fiction so far this year and no SFF. So this fits the bill. But I also really do think that the scene setting was intriguing. I really liked the feeling of longing that you get from that one page, the longing for this relationship that the main character might have lost with Jordan, and him taking in his surroundings about where he is versus where he's been. So I think this is a good omen that I should just dive right in. And then maybe I'll have to see about buying more books, because the rest of the series is completed. Also, I did get this book signed by the author, so it's even more incentive that I really should get to it. So, not quite page 112, but it's something. So that about covers it for me now. You can find links to the Goodreads pages for all three of these books listed down below, as well as the link to my last page 112 tag. I tend to end these videos by shouting out another booktuber. I look at my page 112 tags kind of like I'm playing a TBR game. I mean, it's a lot more simple than most of the others I watch on BookTube, but it's in that same vein of trying to bring some spontaneity to reading. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and highlight Sid Bookworms, I think that's how she would say her name, her Spin the Bottle game, which I gotta say, if I were given the option of, using Spin the Bottle for kissing versus books, I'd probably also choose books. Plus, she has a really pretty board for it, so check it out down below. I'll be back in the near future for my next Friday Reads video. Let's face it, it'll probably be on Saturday, but maybe I'll get my act together, who knows? In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.